right? I mean, coming from a bird's eye point of view, looking at what you've done, right? I mean, this year alone, you were voted Financial Advisor of the Year 2023 for Cincinnati, right? In addition to
Mm.
that, you're a Forbes contributor. So I think for you being more so an educator that's getting paid to give and deliver value, but you're also creating this legacy for your kids and you're influencing them to, I would say, intergenerational wealth. So I
Mhm.
want you to kind of talk about like that component again, because again, I think you're two halves, right? I mean, like one half of you is creative, the other half of you is very analytical. So I would say you're split down the middle. How does that work for you in encompassing what you do, but also giving your kids the freedom to take the information that you're delivering and what you, I mean, also you give back, I think it's 5% of your proceeds goes to a nonprofit as well, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
yeah, so I want you to
Yeah.
talk about all of the things that I just said, but like how does that really work for you in ingraining that in your kids?
One of the most beautiful things that I have experienced over the last couple of years is, being that example for my children. And my kids, they're young, so they were, 10, 8, and 6 when I launched, or a little maybe 9, 7, and 5 when I launched X Squared. Um, and seeing them like, I'm going to be a financial advisor when I grow up. Like, yeah, get it, girl. And just that example of you can create the thing,
Mhm.
right? And so when they, um, Hazel she's my almost 8-year-old. They do writing projects in second grade, and so she has all these things that she's written. So every once in a while, they'll come home and I'll get to read them. And she said on one of her pages, my mom is the boss of a whole company. She made it herself. Like, I did make it myself, baby girl. Thank you. So they're seeing it, right? I think that's one of the biggest legacies that we can leave for our children is the knowing, right? Like they're seeing it and experiencing it that we can create something. You can also, that's what I'm telling them. You can also create what you want in this world. Like that is here for you. Like the creativity that I bring to my work. Um, and like I said, so I love that you called out the analytical plus the creative side because I do the same thing. Like I love a pretty Excel spreadsheet. I'll just be honest. And I also love to create art. Um, and when I allow myself whatever creative expression is coming through, I also like turn to my kids and tell them the same thing. Like, yes, let's create. Like, what do you want to do? So for a lot of time is spent by my children drawing. They love to draw. My son Henry has created this whole country. Like he has a country. It's called Our Morocco. I don't know why. But whenever he hears different things, he like incorporates it into how his country is run.
Hmm.
And so when they were doing, when we're talking about equality in school, he's talking about like how everyone has equal opportunity in our Morocco. And that's really important. And they would never have, these segregated aspects with regards to race or gender. Everyone can be who they want to be. And like he is like downloading this information and then like creating his own country out of it, right? Where things are running in his 10-year-old mind the way that the world ideally should look. And I love allowing them to explore that.
Mhm.
So that's super important to me. When it comes to those two halves of my brain, um, I or just the way that I express in the world, I also think that it's what gets results. So for me, what I was noticing um, in my own work. So before I launched X Squared, the firm I was at for a long time, it was there was a lot of head, right? A lot of analytics, a lot of like, do this checklist. Like, okay, we did all the data entry. Here's your checklist. Go do the thing. And people don't do the thing, right? Even if they have a beautiful checklist of like, here's your to-dos, they might get through some of them. But then when they hit an emotional roadblock with a thing that they're supposed to do, or if, an extra expense comes up and it feels stressful, um, people typically just spiral out of what they were doing and then don't go back to saving and don't actually hit their goals, don't actually make the transformations they want to make because they're just using the logic side. What I found when I started helping people tap into the money story side and the emotional side of money, what we see is that here's the data. The data is the data. And it's how we feel about the data, the emotions that come up around the data that actually govern how we are going to respond to it, what decisions we're going to make about the data.
Mm.
And so my job is actually to first provide really good data, right? Make sure we have good data, good charts, good graphs. That's the analytical side of me. That's important. The other part of my job that is actually more important, I would say the 80-20 rule, right? That's probably 20%. The emotional side is 80%, is
Mhm.
to support the person through that financial decision-making process and doing the deep dive within to say, is this what you really want? What's coming up? What are you feeling about making this decision? What's getting in the way? Because this is a decision that you said you wanted to make. So let's talk about what's happening internally so that you can actually make a decision. So you can walk forward feeling good about your decision.
Mm.
So yeah, it feels like the in the industry, in my industry, most people are just very logical and they rely 100% on logic
Mhm.
and they ignore the behavioral and the emotional because it can be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
especially when you have two spouses in the room that are not agreeing on something. Guess what? That can get a little uncomfortable. But who's going to be the one that's going to help them talk through those issues if it's not you, right? You are me being the person who is able to hold the space for that conversation so that transformation can happen.